All right, Hotep, how's everybody doing today? Hey, this is Michael M. Hotep, founder of the History Network, host of the African. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer, and historian. So it is Saturday, September 17th, 2022, and we are live. So I wanted to come on for a few minutes. I'm getting ready to teach this online class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'af. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We're going to teach this at our online school. And to come on, you all know about it. You can register for the class now and join us live in the class. This is class number 2, and class number 1 was fantastic. If you missed class number 1, we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, so you can go back and watch it anytime. Okay, so we deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. PowerPoint presentation, we have references, articles, video clips, all of that. So it'll totally change how, and we deal with what leads to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So we don't start our history in slavery, okay? Deal with what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. There's going to be a section that I'm adding dealing with the woman king also. We already of Ahozi, the Agoji, the Mino, those African female warriors of the Dome. That's already in the class because it relates to the film. Okay, and the Dora Milaje, we know that the Dora Milaje were inspired by female warriors of the Home. Okay, so they'll be in the class, but I'm adding another section to deal with that as well. Okay, so just very briefly here, if we just some of the things we deal with in the class, we deal with what is the transatlantic slave trade. We deal with events leading up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We can't start studying our history in slavery, even when we study the transatlantic slave trade, which is important to study. We can't start in 1619 or in the 1440s with the Portuguese going into Mauritania and taking out about 12 Africans. That was Anton Gonzalez in 1441. We can't start there. We can't start in 1619 in Virginia or in 1565 with the Spanish in Florida and St. Augustine setting up a settlement in Florida. We have to understand the history chronologically and deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, who entered the Iberian Peninsula, today known as Spain and Portugal, from North Africa in 711 AD. So there's some maps that we look at as well to understand geography also in the class. This course not only deals with the transatlantic slave trade, but thousands of years of history that leads up to the transatlantic slave trade starting. And we know that August 20th, 2019 marked the 400th year anniversary of those 20 and odd Africans who come into Point Comfort, August 20th, 1619, on the White Lion pirate ship, the White Lion, the White Lion pirate ship, in what was going to be the colony of Virginia. All right. That year was known as 2019 was known as the year of return, as many African Americans were reconnecting with Africa and traveling to Ghana and other West African countries, especially. When we discuss the transatlantic slave trade, we have to first understand that African people are the original people of North, Central, and South America. And we've been in this land that we call the United States of America going back at least 51,700 years. Now, this does not mean that the transatlantic slave trade did not happen, because for some of our people, when you say that there was an African presence that was already here, they think you're trying to say slavery didn't happen. No, multiple things happened. This is why you have to understand a chronology of history. There were multiple things that happened. Okay, this is the same thing when we deal with the Woman King and the segment that I'm going to do with that and some of my upcoming shows where we deal with this history. Um, for some reason, some people are shocked to find out that Africans had a cultural servitude system, and we deal with this in the class. Africans had a cultural servitude system, and you're going to have Europeans that superimpose um, their cultural servitude system. They superimpose that over. They superimpose the feudalistic system that um, Europeans already had with the lords and the serfs. They superimpose over the cultural servitude system that already existed in Africa. Okay, but this book right here is an important book to read because I looked at a lot of the comments surrounding the Woman King and the negative comments. Number one, 99.9% of the negative comments I saw were people who didn't see the movie. Number one. Number two, a lot of our people don't understand history. I encourage people to read this book. I'm trying to set up a interview with Dr. Sylvian Diouf now. She's the author of many books. She's a historian of the African diaspora. Okay, she's an author of she's a historian of the African diaspora. But this book right here, Fighting the Slave Trade, West African Strategies, Fighting the Slave Trade, West African Strategies. And this book came out, I forgot which year this book came out, but it deals with, it came out 2003, okay? Fighting the Slave Trade, West African Strategies. But here's a synopsis of her book, because it goes deeper into this history than many other books, and it deals with the different ways that African nations, African tribes fought against Europeans trying to enslave them. While studies, and I want to see if I could zoom in on this. While most studies of the slave trade focus on the volume of captives and on their ethnic groups, the question of how the Africans organized their familial and communal lives to resist and assail and assail it has not received adequate attention, has not received an adequate attention. But our picture of the slave trade is incomplete without an examination of the ways in which men and women responded to the threat and reality of enslavement and deportation. Fighting the slave trade, and can you all see this? Trying to zoom in on it some more. But well, not that much. Fighting the slave trade is the first book to explore in a systematic manner the strategies Africans use to protect and defend themselves and their communities from the onslaught of the Atlantic slave trade, and how they assaulted it because most of these African ethnic groups were given an ultimatum by the Europeans who were invading. Either you provide us with captives or quote unquote slaves, or we're going to enslave you. Now, it already existed in Africa, the cultural servitude system, where if you went to war with a neighboring group or something like that, their captives, you would put them to work. They would become servants, things like this, but it wasn't for perpetuity. Generally speaking, their humanity was still respected. There was a cultural servitude system that already existed. Now, this book challenges widely held beliefs of African passivity and general complicity in the trade, and shows that resistance to enslavement and to involvement in the slave trade was much more pervasive than has been acknowledged by the orthodox interpretation of historical literature. Focused on West Africa, the essays collected here examine in detail the defensive, protective, and offensive strategies of individuals, families, communities, and states. In chapters discussing the manipulation of the environment, resettlement, the redemption of captives, the transformation of social relations, political centralization, marriage, violent assaults on ships and entrepots, shipboard revolts, and controlled participation in the slave trade as a way to procure the means to attack it. Controlled participation in the slave trade as a way to procure or obtain the means to attack the transatlantic slave trade. A lot of that had to do with them, with Africans trading, Africans who were captives, trading with Europeans for guns to, one, be able to defend themselves against other African ethnic groups that they were at war with, two, to defend themselves against European colonizers at the same time. This is a complicated history. History is not perfect. Europeans were enslaving and killing each other for hundreds of years, conquering, enslaving, and killing each other for hundreds of years. This is what Europeans were doing. Fighting the slave trade presents a much more complete picture of the West African slave trade than has previously been available. So check out this book by Sylvian Diolf. I'm trying to set up a interview with her on the African History Network show, because we don't understand I'm listening to a lot of comments and things like this from people who think our history is perfect. I don't know where the hell they get Simple Simon nonsense like that from. Just, it doesn't exist. I mean, it's like, I guess when people find out that Dr. King was a sexist and cheated on his wife, they're going to stop having Dr. King Day celebrations too, because he's not perfect. But some other things we deal with in the class, we deal with the African presence 51,700 years ago. Dr. David Imhotep has a lot of research on this. Page 14 of his book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, lays out the discovery by Dr. Albert Goodyear in 2004 in Allendale County, South Carolina. And they found 13 different types of evidence thoroughly documenting an African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years ago. They found artifacts and architecture and campsites and carvings, footprints in lava, genetic M174D haploid groups dealing with DNA and genetics, skulls, skeleton structures and tools, linguistics, paintings, etc. Okay. His book has 713 footnotes, thoroughly documents an African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years ago. Here's a picture of Dr. Albert Goodyear. Read this article here. New evidence puts man in North America 50,000 years ago, from ScienceDaily.com, November 18th, 2004. And the Africans that they're talking about are the Khoisan. The Khoisan have the oldest DNA on the planet. They go all around the world. They're the short-statured Africans, derisively known as Bushmen, okay, or pygmies as well. In October 2012, genetic study published in Science magazine found that the Khoisan in Southern Africa are the oldest ethnic group of modern humans, with their ancestral line originating about 100,000 years ago. Here are a couple of Khoisan women here. So we go through and we look at different archaeological discoveries. That's something that we're going to look at in class today. So you can register for this class, because as soon as I finish this broadcast here, we're going to go over to our online school for the class. We deal with studies here, this discovery here. Albert Perry had his DNA was Y chromosome. It was found, dates back to an ancestor 340,000 years ago. And this was prior to that, the oldest known fossils of modern man dated back 195,000 years ago. We see the discovery coming out of Morocco, June 2017. They found remains of Homo sapiens dating back 300,000 and 350,000 years ago. And what we see taking place is, when more and more of these discoveries come out, is causing the archaeologists and paleontologists to push the timelines back. Okay. And they're finding that all of this is much older than we think it is. So the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets, the older, the more research they do, the older we get. So we'll talk some about the Olmec culture as well. We'll look at some different different ancient African civilizations also. We deal with some history coming from ancient Kemet, but also the influence of ancient Kemet here in this land we call the United States of America, or Egypt of the West. Like when we see the Washington Monument, which is a Tekken, ancient African symbol, and we see Tekken Nu in London, England, Paris, France, and New York City, and these were taken from Africa. Okay, there are about 1,200 Tekken Nu. And the Tekken comes from the mythology of Asar, Aset, and Heru. It represents the resurrection of the African king Asar. There were approximately 1,200 Tekken Nu built in ancient Kemet, but only about a dozen are found in Egypt today. Many of the Tekken Nu removed from Kemet or Egypt are now in Istanbul, Turkey, London, England, Paris, France, Berlin, Germany, New York, Rome, Italy, Vatican City, and elsewhere throughout the world. The Tekken Nu are now called obelisks by their new owners, and few know their origin or that they symbolize the resurrection of the African king Asar. If you read Egypt on the Potomac by Tony Browder, page 17, he deals with this, okay? And that's one of the books we use in the class. You don't have to buy any of these books to follow along in the class, but that's one of the books we use in the class. We deal with Freemasonry as well, and we look at these different influences coming from ancient Kemet in the Nile Valley region of Africa. The word Mason is derived from the Latin words mass and sun. Mason means child of light, and expresses the desire to pursue light, which is a metaphor for the sun, which symbolizes knowledge. The term child of light, or sons and daughters of light, was first used to identify students who had completed 42 years of study in the temples of ancient Kemet. Many Masonic temples were modeled after the temples in ancient Kemet, places where light or knowledge was imparted in a series of steps or degrees. So when you look at cartoons, and the little cartoon character has a bright idea, right? Bright, referring to light. You'll see a light bulb go off over the cartoon, symbolizing a bright idea. Bright being associated with knowledge. That's ancient. Okay, light being associated with knowledge is ancient, and it was the Moors who take the teaching from the ancient Kemet, the light from ancient Kemet in the Nile Valley region of Africa. They take this into Europe, and Europe is going through the Dark Ages when they go in 711 AD. And this light brings Europe out of the Dark Ages. And in the 14th century, Europe goes into a new age called the Renaissance age. The Renaissance age. And the Renaissance age was an age of enlightenment. Light, L-I-G-H-T, enlightenment, meaning acquiring new knowledge, coming out of the darkness. Read page 18 and 32 of Egypt on the Potomac by Tony Browder. And the concept of going to an institution of higher learning and getting your credentials in a series of steps or degrees, that comes out of ancient Kemet as well. So you go to college, you get your associate's degree, your bachelor's degree, your PhD, master's degree, PhD, etc. And even the concept of liberal arts college comes out of Africa. Okay, so these are just some of the topics that we deal with um, in the class. We go through and look at a lot of this history and try to look at it this chronologically. Also, we look at things like Gwar, Osset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, or Horus, to the Black Madonna child and the Black Madonna be worship all throughout Europe. And then the decolorized version of that, when Europeans are coming out of the Dark Ages and they're starting to conquer people's land and extract the mineral wealth and the human capital out of their land and build Europe back up, as we see a increase and ascension in the European phenotype. Well, as Europeans acquire wealth, we see a ascension and a greater importance being put on the European phenotype and the dominance of the European phenotype being projected. So then we'll see a lot of traditional images that were African get reinterpreted as European. One of them is the Black Madonna and child. Okay, and you know, different biblical characters, all types of things like that. We see they get reinterpreted. So yeah, this is just a brief synopsis of some of the things that we cover in the class. Okay, and then we deal with things like why is Christmas celebrated on December 25th? Nowhere in the biblical text does it state that Yeshua, Jesus Christ, was born on December 25th. There's a section that we do dealing with the film Black Panther, because Black Panther is heavily influenced by African culture and history and spiritual systems, things like this. The panther deity Bast comes from Bastet, which was a deity in ancient Kemet, worshipped in the form of a lioness and then later in the form of a cat. Bastet, she was a netter of warfare, worshipped in Lower Kemet, Lower Egypt. This is around 2900 BCE. Okay, so we deal with Hannibal Barca and the Carthaginians and the Punic Wars against Rome. We talk about civilizations like Carthage and Nubia, Zimbabwe, Axum, different things like this. Okay, and we just go throughout history chronologically, and then we deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, going into the Iberian Peninsula in 711 AD. Led by Tariq ibn Ziyad. They go on in 710 also under General Tarif, then in 711 AD under Tariq ibn Ziyad. And then we look and see what's going to lead up to the transatlantic slave trade also taking place starting in the 1440s. Okay. And we look at the role Christopher Columbus played, because Columbus was crucial to the expansion of the transatlantic slave trade. And we look and see where Columbus went on his 4 voyages. He never came to the land we call the United States of America. The closest he comes here is Cuba, which is 90 miles away. All right, so that's just a very, very brief synopsis here. Okay, it's just a very, very brief synopsis. You can register. This is an 8-week online class. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. We had class number 1 last Saturday. So as soon as you register, you can watch that. You can join us in class now, because I'm going to teach this class right now. We're running behind schedule, but we're about to. So as soon as you register, you can join us in our online school. Classes on sale $80, regularly $130. It's an 8-week online course. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. You can also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and our new website, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have the information there. Okay. How you doing? Is that Michaela? How you doing, Michaela? Hotep, Shemotep. Right on the homepage, when you scroll down, you'll see the information. Well, this is one of my broadcasts dealing with Queen Elizabeth passing away. And I do a British colonialism, hundreds of years of slavery, no reparations. That's on our YouTube channel, but we have the video on the homepage of our website. But we have the information for the class here. Okay. So class number 2 is today. And you can click right here, register here for the class. And then the second class I teach is on Thursdays, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And that class is on sale, $80, regular $130 also. We have a bundle pack right here. Register for the bundle. Click it there to register for the bundle. and you get both classes on sale for $130. Okay, so that's over a $300 value. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch these classes anytime. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you can go back and watch the entire class. Okay. So once you register for it, you have full access. Here's the link for the course bundle. Okay. And then be sure to visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. We have the information there as well. And as soon as you, because I'm about to teach this class now, it's Saturday, September 17th. So as soon as you register, you can join us in the class at our online school. It's not on social media. All right. Okay. Look, and we have a very special show of the African History Network show Sunday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF and right here on Facebook and YouTube. Because one of our topics will be the movie The Woman King. Okay, I'm going to see it this weekend, and then we'll deal with that and some of the history that we see depicted in the film also. All right, look, also, if you like type of information, you can support the African History Network, $, the AHN show through Cash App, $, the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. Because all this stuff doesn't happen for free. And then we have that information on the homepage of our website as well. This is our official Cash App account, $, the AHN show, SHOW, right here. And we have the links you can click on. When you go to our Cash App account, it'll say Michael, and it should show my picture there. These other ones here are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. So you click right here, it takes you to the next page because there's some fake, and I'm trying to get the fake account shut down. It's about 5 fake African History Network Cash App accounts out there that I have identified. So Cash App opened up a investigation, but they are slower than Heinz ketchup. All right, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.